Hi, hello. Welcome to Hogwarts. I trust you had a safe and pleasant journey. You're about to enter the Great Hall and undergo the sorting hat ceremony, after which there will be a prefect waiting in each of your common rooms with some personalized book recommendations. Don't be surprised if the prefects in each of your houses look exactly like me. That is because we are quintuplets. They're not me. No, never would be me. I do want to say that, of course, you will be sorted into one specific house because our personalities are often multifaceted. Sometimes we don't feel properly represented by putting us in one specific box. So feel free to, sneak a peek at the other house's book recommendations if you feel like you might be better represented by a mix of two or three, or maybe even all of them. I hope you have a great time at Hogwarts and have fun with your book recommendations. Hello, welcome to the Gryffindor Common Room. I've been tasked to give you some book recommendations, and I'm about to, so sit down and enjoy. Have a tea, have a cup of tea. We have everything here. You're in Gryffindor, you're one of the cool kids now. So you've been sorted into Gryffindor. Congratulations, first of all. That means you're probably very brave, courageous, determined, adventurous, and you just like to have fun. The first thing I want to give to you, in case you don't own it yet, is the entirety of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings box set. If you're looking for an adventure story, a story filled with friendship, magic, everything that you can need and want, we got it right here. The Hobbit happens before The Lord of the Rings. Personally, The Hobbit is my favorite. Out of the 4 books, I actually really loved reading The Hobbit. And you've probably heard of, the one ring to rule them all that needs to go back to Mordor where it was crafted, which is what happens in The Lord of the Rings. But you can imagine that that would not be an easy journey. So we followed him throughout 3 books. And The Hobbit is where we first, understand kind of what the ring can do and where it comes from and all that kind of stuff. And we get to know the hobbits. It's really, really sweet. So cute. Classic adventure tale and some great fantasy for you. Here you go. I was thinking maybe if you wanted to dive into some classic literature, the classic adventure story is the Odyssey. This tells us the story of Odysseus. You've probably heard of Odysseus on his journey back home from the Trojan War, which is told in the Iliad in case you want to read up on all the happenings of the war. After the war, though, Odysseus needs to go back home to Ithaca to his wife Penelope, and it takes him 10 years. This is what happens in here. So, in case maybe you've heard of Circe, maybe you've read the book Circe. Circe is one of the stops that Odysseus takes on his way back home. So, if you want a classic adventure journey story, the Odyssey. This is technically a poem, so it's, can be maybe a little bit harder to read, but you're a Gryffindor, you can handle a challenge. So I trust that you can absolutely do this. This is no problem for you. Here you go, the Odyssey. There you go. The next book I have for you is some science fiction. We've got A Hitchhiker's Guide Through the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This is not the English version, but I can definitely get the English edition for you. This is just the one that I had, on hand. We have our main character, Arthur Dent, whose home, sadly, is destroyed, which is why he needs to go on a journey through the galaxy, through space, and if you don't have anything to drive through space with, you need to hitchhike, which is what he does, which is what happens in this book. If you're interested in that, I feel like you would be. Here you go, that's that. I want to continue with some more magical fantasy, but a little bit different from The Hobbit. I have 2 that kind of give me very similar vibes. One of them I have read, one of them I have not read. I have read The Night Circus, which is why I can definitely recommend this with 100% confidence. I loved this book, 5 stars. The Night Circus is a circus that only arrives at night and only takes place at night, and it can like magically move all over the world basically. And we have our, basically it's like two main characters. There's more people just associated with the circus that we follow, but we have two main characters who are magicians in like their own respective ways, which I won't tell you too much about because that will be spoilers. And they are preparing to battle each other, but they don't know each other. At least at first they don't know each other, and they're trying to like prepare for a battle where they don't really know anything about it, really. They don't know who's going to be their opponent. They don't really know what exactly the battle entails, but everything is connected through the circus, and it's so magical. It's so beautiful. I really hope you enjoy it. So here you go. Similar to this, I don't really know if it's similar to this, it just gives me very similar vibes. We have Caraval by Stephanie Garber. Oh, I didn't even tell you. The Night Circus is by Erin Morgenstern. Our main character is Scarlet, and Caraval is similar to the Night Circus. This is a performance, like a show where the audience participates in the show. And Scarlet has dreamed her entire life. She's dreamed of participating, going to Caraval, and she wants to do it. And then her father arranges a marriage for her, which technically would mean that she would never get to go to Caraval, but then she gets a chance to, she gets invited, and that's what the book's about. And apparently, you know, that takes a turn somewhere. So here you go, Caraval. Hope you're happy with your book recommendations so far. I have one last one for you that's more, again, more fantasy, but different. It's darker a little bit, and you've probably heard of it. Maybe you've even seen the show, but believe me, reading the books is so worth it. The Witcher by, oh wow, I will actually butcher that name. Say, Andrzej Sapkowski. I think he's Polish, and technically I'm German, so I feel like I should be able to say this. Here I have The Witcher, The Last Wish for you, which is the first book in like the introducing The Witcher, the prequels series. I also have the first book in the actual Witcher like series for you if you would like it. That's right here. I have read this one already, and luckily I had seen the show before, so I kind of knew what was going on a little bit. I feel like if you haven't seen the show, it makes sense to start with this one because you get more of a like a background on who is the Witcher, because in here we're just like, we kind of already know him and we know, kind of supposed to know who he is. And if you haven't seen the show, maybe starting with the prequels makes more sense. The Witcher, or Witchers in general, they have magical powers, just, you know, and they're really good at fighting beasts and that kind of stuff, which is what we, you know, we get to see here. And also it's read, I feel like this just color-wise, theme-wise, everything screams Gryffindor. This is The Witcher for you. Those are all the book recommendations I have for you at the moment. Other than that, I hope to see you around. Bye. Hi, welcome to the Hufflepuff Common Room. I'm so glad you're here. You're a Hufflepuff, which is great news because that means you're probably very loyal, you're hardworking, you're humble. You probably always have the best snacks around. We also have the best snacks around here in the Common Room all the time, so whenever you're hungry, like even in the middle of the night, you can just come down and, you know, there's always something here. My job today, though, is to give you some book recommendations, which I'm so happy about because I have fantastic books to recommend to you. The first book I want to recommend to you is Autobiography of Red by N. Carson. This, first of all, stunning cover. We love it. This is a novel in verse, which means it's like kind of between a poem and a novel, but it's not too difficult to read, I promise. This is a reimagining or retelling of Heracles' story, or Hercules, depending on if you prefer the Greek or the Roman. Generally, I love myth retellings, especially Greek myths, because they're just like so, there's so many of them and it's so interesting and so cool. And I think Anne Carson does a fantastic job of like making it such a moving story. This is gorgeous and this is beautiful and I really just want you to read it. So I will give this to you. This is a gift for me. The next book I have to recommend to you is very different, like very different genre. This is Grave Expectations by Alice Bell. This is a murder mystery, but a very cozy murder mystery. Our main character in here is a medium, so she can talk to ghosts, and her best friend is also a ghost. Or, well, it's the ghost of her actual best friend who died when they were 17. It's not the ghosts in here, it's like not spooky, but she actually just talks to them like they're normal people. And you know, here at Hogwarts, especially here in the Hufflepuff common room, we have our monk, the monk ghost. There's lots of ghosts here, but they're like, most of them are really friendly, so I feel like we could all relate to her a lot. And of course, there is some murder involved, but I feel like we all can agree that murder mysteries are just cozy. So she goes to this house, and is supposed to like do a kind of a show off her medium powers, talk to ghosts or talk to a ghost of the house. And well, at the house, she finds out that maybe there has been a murder, and maybe the people in the house, the family living there, might be responsible. And then we follow her trying to figure this out. And the funny thing about it is that she's not a detective. Like, she has no business doing this, which is kind of what makes it so funny. And all the time, obviously, we have her best friend, ghost, sidekick. This is a cozy murder mystery for you. Had to take my jumper off because, you know, when they're cooking, like in the kitchens right next to us, it gets really warm in here. But the next recommendation is actually a recommendation of an author, but I have two books of his here. I have The House in the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I will recommend this man till the day I die because I think he writes the cutest and coziest stories ever. Our main character in The House in the Cerulean Sea is Linus Baker, who works for the Department of Magical Youth, and he's supposed to go around like orphanages with magical children to just check up on them and see how everything's going and all of that kind of stuff. And he goes to this one orphanage led by Arthur Panassis, and he has some very special magical children there, including the Antichrist. Yes, you've heard correctly. This is such a cute, like, found family story. So there's some romance involved. It's the cutest thing ever. I have this one, highly recommend, and then also the second book I'm going to recommend to you is Under the Whispering Door. I'm going to say the themes in here are a little bit darker because it's basically about death, but this is a world where when you die, you're basically transported into a tea shop, which looks like this. So this is what the tea shop looks like that you go to when you die, and then you drink a tea with the owner of the tea shop, and you just talk to him until you're ready to die, basically, until you're ready to go into the afterlife. I will just recommend this author in general to you, TJ Klune. Everything he's written is adorable and so good. This is for you. Right, the next recommendation technically is also an entire series, again, that I'm going to recommend. This is the Emily Wilde series. Yes, I do realize that this one doesn't actually match these ones. The correct edition has been ordered in, but it hasn't arrived yet. But I will let you know the second it arrives, so, you know, we can switch these out, because I don't like it either, I agree. This is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. Emily Wilde is a scholar who studies fairies. This book follows her on like an expedition, basically her studies in the actual field, where she goes to a very northern island, small island, not a lot of people, to study the very rare like breed of fae that they have, or fairies. She has like a scholarly rival called Wendell, who follows her onto the island, and she's obviously not very happy about that because that's her research and what is he doing here. But then they have to like arrange themselves and do the research together. It's really cute. The world building is phenomenal. Like you really feel like you are in there with Emily. And this is the first part, then we have the second part, Emily Wilde's map of the other lands, when, you know, We are exploring other lands. And the last one is Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. This was published this February, so it's very, very new. I have not read it yet. I will give you this entire series and you can just give me the like wrong edition when I'll switch it out with you, you know, when we get the right one. So here you go. All right, last but not least, I have like the classic love story, or a classic love story for you. Look at this beautiful edition, by the way, of Pride and Prejudice. I love it so much. It has 19 letters from the characters' correspondence written and folded by hand, like in here. There's just like pages with like foil, and there's the letters that the characters write to each other in here. Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, you know, falling in love. And there's pride, there's prejudice. It's just good. It makes sense. It's fantastic. Read it, and I will even give you this beautiful edition because I think, you know, you're a Hufflepuff. You can appreciate it. You can appreciate it so much. So, you know, here you go. All right, that's all the book recommendations I have for you at the moment. One of the best things of being Hufflepuff is always being able to like sneak a little snack from the kitchens. So I think that's what we should go to right now. Hello, welcome to Ravenclaw. As a Ravenclaw myself, I was elated when I got the task of picking some books for you, so I hope you're ready. You're also Ravenclaw, which means you're probably very smart. Some people might even say wise, innovative, you're maybe a bit eccentric, you're determined as well, determined to learn, and you always have a fun fact in your pocket, don't you? The first book I want to recommend to you is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is about a group of students that study Greek. By their professor, they are led into like the depths of like human behavior, which turns into some really freaky things, to be honest. Some crazy things are going down, but it's so intelligently written. You know, it's quite a long book. I did find it very engaging, and we can follow them and like their minds on a downward spiral into cruelty and evil, even just doing some crazy things on the way. But this is a dark academia, obviously, and I think dark academia is like the perfect genre for us Ravenclaws. This is the must read in the dark academia genre. Here you go, The Secret History. The next book I want to recommend to you is Flowers for Algernon. I'm not actually 100% sure how you say it. I think it's Algernon, by Daniel Keyes. First of all, look at this cover. It's blue with some like bronze reflections. Like, could we get a more perfect match? Also, I think it matches me right now perfectly. If you see, like, there's a bookmark in here, and that's just coincidentally, that is the place that I am currently at in this book, so I'm currently reading this. This book is about our main character, Charlie Gordon, who's born with a very, very low IQ, and he's chosen as a subject for an experimental surgery that should increase his IQ, his intelligence. This surgery has only previously been tested on mice, and before he goes through with the surgery, he meets the mouse that's, like, had the best success rate in this in the surgery, and that mouse is called Algernon. So Algernon is the mouse, and Charlie is our guy. And the surgery turns him into a genius, basically. The book is written in progress reports that Charlie writes himself. So in the beginning, it's written the way Charlie's like talks and says it. So there's so many like grammatical and spelling mistakes at first. Like, you can read it, but it takes some getting used to. It gets better the further along we go because obviously he gets smarter. I already feel for him so much, and this is such an interesting book, and I think you would really enjoy it as well. So here you go. The next book I have for you is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This, I think, was just so intelligently written because this is written in an interview style. It's about a band in the 1960s, I think, called Daisy Jones and the Six. And as I said, it's written in an interview style, so we're interviewing the members of the band about the happenings that were going on, like, backstage, or, like, the forming of the band backstage behind, like, their success and fame and all the shows that they were playing, and then also what led to them eventually breaking up the band. That is not a spoiler. This is the only Taylor Jenkins Reid that I've read. So maybe if you've read more books by her, let me know which ones I should read. So this is Stacey Johnson 6. Enjoy. The next book is one of my personal favorites. This is The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. This is a Japanese classic. This is about a former maths professor who suffered a brain injury some point in his life, after which he only has 80 minutes of memory. So every 80 minutes his memory resets and he doesn't remember anything that happened before, or I think ever since his accident, onwards. He does remember things from before the accident, but anything that happened in between he does not remember, and every 80 minutes his memory resets. This book opens with the newest housekeeper and her son moving in with the professor and helping him in his everyday tasks, and it's so endearing to see how they can build a relationship and a friendship even in spite of him only having 80 minutes of memory, especially with the housekeeper's son. The professor has such a great bond with him, and we get lots of math analogies and some math jokes, which personally, because I have a special interest in math, I study it. It was amazing. I loved it so much, and I think you would really enjoy it. That's already the last book I have to recommend to you, and this is The Coincidence Makers by Yoav Blum. I think he's from Israel. This is about a group of people called the Coincidence Makers, or, well, they're in training to become coincidence makers, and they are the people who make the little situations happen that you and I, we would maybe look at as, oh, what a coincidence that I missed my train and met you here today. That's wow, what a coincidence. No, it wasn't. They made it happen. Such an interesting concept. I loved, I generally, the whole idea of coincidence, does it exist or does it not exist, is so interesting to me. I would categorize this as maybe magical realism or literary fiction. But as I said, I think it's so interesting to just think that everything that you would look at as a coincidence or maybe a happy accident was carefully curated and analyzed with statistics and everything, what needs to happen that the situation that you just experienced comes to be exactly like that and no other way. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it, so I do want to talk about it and I want to recommend it to you because I think it was fantastic. So here you go. I'm actually gonna go and ask the other students about their book recommendations, because I always need more. I want more, so feel free to join me, I think, next to Slytherin. Welcome to Slytherin. Not all of us might look it, but we are glad to have you. I thought by now you might be a bit hungry, so I got this for you, to get your vitamins in, so enjoy. You've been sorted into Slytherin, which is fantastic. You're ambitious, you're witty, you're funny, you're proud of who you are. Self-consciousness, we don't know her. I was tasked to give you some book recommendations, so that's what I did, and that's what I'm here to do. The first really obvious one, I think, is Beyond the Wand. So, Draco's story. If you haven't read it yet, I don't know what to tell you, really. The next one I have for you is The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kiersten White. This is a bit of a spin-off of Frankenstein, which obviously is also a recommendation kind of given with this. This is about Elizabeth Frankenstein. Victor's family, Victor is Victor Frankenstein in the original Frankenstein novel, it's the main character. His family adopts Elizabeth when she's a little kid. She grows up with Victor as his friend, and no one really pays attention to her that much in the actual book, and this needs to be changed, so this book exists, which is fantastic, because obviously Victor goes down quite a dark path in Frankenstein, and she is the woman who has to deal with it all, so it's no surprise that there might be some darkness in her at some point as well, and that's what we can explore in this one, and it's really cool. So here you go. The next one I want to recommend as a series. I don't have it here. I only listen to it as audiobooks, but you can probably get it anywhere or also listen to it in audiobook. I think it was really good. And that is the Truly Devious series. That's more of a murder mystery or mystery series. This takes place at Ellingham Academy, which is like a very prestigious school, and the crime we're investigating, or not we, but a newly arrived student called Stephanie Bell, is investigating because she wants to be a detective. She wants to be Sherlock Holmes. She loves Sherlock Holmes. We all love Sherlock Holmes. The crime she's investigating, or we're investigating, happened when the school first opened. So when the original founder's wife and daughter went missing slash died, we don't really know. We're gonna find out in the series. And Stevie wants to find out what happened. Like, she makes it her project throughout her attending the school to find out what happened. And it's so engagingly written. It's fantastic. I think the first 3 books entail the solving of the crime at Ellingham, and then there's 2 more books in the series. I've listened to the 4th book, The Box in the Woods, and then there's another one I think called 9 Liars or something like that. I haven't yet listened to it, but I will, because it was really fantastic. I think it was a brilliantly written murder mystery series, and it's really engaging. It's so cool. Okay, so the next book I'm going to recommend is a classic, and that's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. You've probably heard of this. This is like the classic double-faced man's double being story. We have Dr. Jekyll, who wants to who's experimenting with some chemicals, and he turns into Mr. Hyde, his basically other personality, and has to hide it from the world. And it's really kind of eerie and spooky, but it's like so cool. I feel like the story is referenced so much throughout other literature, theater, movies, everything really, that it just makes sense to have read it. And it's really cool. There. Okay, the last book I have is called If We Were Villains, written by Emma Rio. Especially being a Slytherin, everybody always thinks we're the villain, but that's not true. Like, most of us are really just normal kids, but there's like a few that have to ruin it for us, and that's just like, that kind of sucks. This is a dark academia, and it's about a group of acting students who they talk a lot in Shakespeare. They love Shakespeare. They are doing Shakespeare plays all the time, and they always get cast as like the same roles basically. So there's one guy who's always the hero. There's one guy who's always the villain. Like, one of the girls is always the temptress. One of the girls is always like the naive girl. But then their teacher like switches up the casting a little bit. But the like switching up of the roles kind of bleeds into their actual life and their actual relationships, so that when a really tragic thing happens. This is written from the perspective of one of the students, Oliver, who just got out of jail for committing the crime, that tragic accident, He was in jail for it, and he goes back to the school, talks to the detective that was then on the case, and he explains to him what actually happened. And we're then diving into that story of when it actually happened. A lot of people don't like that they do kind of talk in Shakespeare a lot, but I didn't mind that. I actually really enjoyed it. Fantastic book. I think you should read it. There you go. Alright, so that's all the books I have for you today. You can just, you come in with me, meet the others, and we'll have a good time. So yeah, welcome to Hogwarts. Alright. I hope you got some good book recommendations. In case you want more of this or more specific versions of this, like if you only want recommendations for a certain genre, then, let me know. I'm happy to arrange that. Other than that, that would be all from my side. I hope to see you around. Have a great time. Yeah, see you next time, I guess. Bye.